Good morning everyone, welcome to our small footprint. My name is Nyssa, and if you're new here, we are a family of 8 who live off-grid in Australia. Today's video is a food video. Now I'm back in the garden filming this in amongst all the rubbish and everything else that everyone has a problem with, because I normally do it underneath the solar structure. But we've been putting Lamington out in the secondary garden space, so we've got the solar structure blocked off at the moment, so she can't get in there to any of the batteries or the wires or anything. And I couldn't bother pulling it apart to get in there to do it. And it's overcast. It's early morning. We're talking, I don't know, it's 7 o'clock in the morning, and it's overcast. It rained yesterday, and it's a little sad looking today, but it means that it's nice and cool, the sun's not too bad, and so I can sit here. And I had this chair sitting here from the video that I did the other day, so you know, using what we have. So we're doing a food video, so we're into like, I don't know, I think it's only like 2.5 weeks before I go for the next grocery haul. So we're sort of 6 weeks in, still doing food like normal. So in case you're tuning in, I do these food videos because we only shop 6 times a year, and in between those times that we shop, I show how we use the food that we buy, what we do with it to make sure that it lasts, and how we cook it and store it, preserve it, and all those sorts of things, and what we cook in general. This month, this supply run period, this 2 months, we've started, Darryl and I have started doing some ketovore or meat-based keto as well. So I've been sharing some of our adventures with some of those foods too, some better than others, and as we figure out what we like and what I adapt things to how I like, then I'll share them a bit more in depth. But at the moment it's a little bit of an overview, and I just go through what we do every month. So this is probably part 5, I think, of the, so I shopped in October, and so this is, and then I shop again in December. So this is, I think, part 5 of the food in my kitchen on a daily sort of thing. I always call them a day in the life in the kitchen, because basically I just turn the camera on and film my bench, and then I do these voiceovers, which I do a whole bunch of notes for, and then I splice it all together to show what we were doing and how we did it and how it turned out and things like that. So I sort of, refer to them as like a day in the life of the kitchen, because that's basically what they are. It's not very curated at all. I would love to do some like single item videos. They're really good for the algorithm too, because people search for single item things. Like I've been asked to do a few canning videos and like specific on things, and I would love to do them. I just haven't managed to get there yet, and part of that's the kitchen. So the kitchen is still really not the nicest place to work in. I use stainless steel benches, so everything that I'm using to cook is sanitized and clean, but the actual environment's not real great, which people comment on all the time, and that's fine. That's the way it is. It's out on a patio. It has no walls. It has a temporary roof structure because we're still installing a solid roof. And eventually it will have some walls, and we'll get it screened off so that there is less bugs and things like that. At the moment we use fans to keep things sorted, and everything gets covered overnight, and everything gets cleaned in the morning before we use it and things like that. And it is just the way it is. It's an outdoor kitchen, and that's life. And whilst it's super frustrating at times, it also is just, it just is. But it does make filming difficult because there is no nice backdrops, there is no good lighting or anything else. So at the moment what I'm doing is basically all I have the capacity to do, and so I'll try, and as we fix the kitchen, there is thoughts of how I want it so that there is a feasible way of like having a camera facing me as well as the camera on the bench and things like that, but it's not there yet. So these are the videos you get until that point. I will do a video tomorrow, probably a chat video tomorrow because it's Sunday, and we'll talk about Vlogmas and things like that. I'm working really hard on all the orders for the shop, so thank you very much. That Black Friday sale, so the 10% off over 100 and free shipping over 40, plus the discounts on a bunch of stuff and the new stock. I'll probably run it till maybe Monday night, Sunday, Monday night. We'll see how many orders come through as to how much time I have to get it done. I want everything posted out by the end of the week, so I just have to make sure that I have the capacity to do that as well. So we'll run the sale, and I looked at the cut-off dates for shipping, and within Australia it's actually the next week. So we'll just see how it runs. Anyone who's having problems with shipping, you can message me and get a shipping quote if you need to. If there's the US ones, I will do a $15 refund on your shipping once it's ordered to give you the same discount the Australian people are getting. But yeah, so thank you very much everyone who's shopped it so far, and I'm really enjoying, getting all the orders together. So let's get into this food video. With the bulk meat delivery, I ordered some chuck roasts, and the chuck roasts that I ordered come in like big 5 kilo slabs. So one of the things I wanted to try and do is smoke them now that we've got the new smoker. From everything I was reading about the different methods of doing it, you basically end up with sort of a cheap style brisket, except that it wasn't that much cheaper than buying brisket. But I wanted to give it a go, so I'm not smoking it to pulling point. I'm smoking it to slicing point, so that we could use it as like sliced roast beef. That was the idea. So I cut it in half so that the cooking time would be a bit less than cooking the whole slab at one point, and coated it with some salt and pepper and garlic. I bought myself these new wireless Inkbird thermometers. They're a 4-pack that go in a case that charges them, and they go straight in the meat and you don't have wires, which is awesome, because the problem was that the ones that I had wires hanging out, and it wasn't real great for the wires. They kept on getting bent in between the doors of things. But you also had to have the monitor somewhat close, that it was plugged in, but not so close that the heat was going to damage it. So there was a lot of juggling with that. So I really wanted these wireless ones, but they were pretty expensive. Just before Black Friday-ish, I think it was, there was $75 off on them, so I splurged on them. They can be my Christmas present. So this is a 4-pack, and then that means that I can have it in different parts of the meat if I wanted. So I stuck one probe into the thickest part of each piece of meat and got them in the smoker. So the smoker is a Pit Boss pellet grill. I've only used it a couple of times, so I don't have a lot to say on it just yet. I will elaborate on it when I've used it a bit more, but it does seem to keep the heat nice and consistent. The quantity of pellets that it goes through is quite significant, especially for things like this chuck roast. It's like an all-day smoke, and I'm not sure whether this would be something that I would consistently do. I'll show you the meat later on when it's done, but I don't know that this would be our choice of ways to do these chuck roasts. It was really touted as being really tasty and really good, but I don't think we enjoyed it as much as the time and cost required to get them done. But the smoker seems to be working really well. It's very large though, and the cost of the pellets, as I said, I need to make use of it better and do more in the smoker in one go to make the most of the pellets. So I think I need to plan that more for the beginning of the month when I bring home all the fresh food, and do a whole bunch of different things that can then be potentially frozen or used for other things, and do it all at once to make the most of the cost of the pellets as well as the time required to do it. Once the chuck roast hits the 165 or it's 76-ish Celsius, it's called the stall, and you normally pull it out and you wrap it. So I wrapped it in foil. I have since got some of the pink butcher's paper, but I didn't have any at the time, so foil works just as well. So the thermometer's still in the meat, and this is where the ones without the wires really help too, because I didn't have to juggle the wires for it, but also I can just wrap it right over the thermometers. It doesn't matter. They don't have to be exposed. They don't have to stick out. They're just in there. So you want them all the way into the meat, all the way to the ceramic part, which is protected against the heat, and then it will measure only the internal part of the meat as well. So it's really easy to have those, so I'm really happy with these. And then just wrapped it in foil and got it back into the smoker at the same temperatures. We're running it at about the 225 Fahrenheit or 110 Celsius, and got it back in there until it comes up to the next set of temperatures. I made some baguettes for the kids. Baguettes are just such an easy bread for me to make. They can be sliced in so many ways, like small discs, or you can have them lengthways, you can have them as subs or whatever else. And it's a really nice, quick rising dough. It's soft because it's got a little bit of fat in there, and it's just, lately it's been my choice of dough to make easy for the kids. I'm not a huge fan of cooking loaves of bread. I can stuff them up pretty easily because you have to watch that second proof, that rise in the tin, and sometimes I stuff it up. So as much as it's nice to have sliceable bread, these work. But also, once you slice into a loaf of bread, then the rest of the loaf has a timeline on it. Whereas with baguettes, it's only each baguette that has that timeline on it, which I think is really neat. So I did some baguettes for the kids. Again, it just mixed up the dough, and it has a nice quick rise, and then, put it aside to proof. While that was proofing, I made some chocolate muffins. Now, I tried a couple, I tried an almond flour low carb one for me to give a go, just because I'm trying to cook a few treats here and there just to keep me on the path that I need to be on if I want to stick to the diet. Not that... We're sticking to it at the moment. We're going to see if we get results, just because, and it's not worth doing anything half-hearted. So we're doing these things. So I did some almond flour muffins, I did, a bit of almond flour, cocoa, monk fruit sweetener, some eggs, some ghee, some baking powder. It was a really simple, basic recipe. I've seen a whole lot of recipes. Start simple, we'll work on it later. I have seen some cottage cheese recipes going around though, which might be worth it because that would make it really moist, I'd imagine. But I think the thing is to aim for more of a brownie than a muffin, because none of these really seem to be muffin-like, which is, I've had a lot of experience with cooking with gluten-free, because Surreal used to be gluten and wheat intolerant when she was young, and so we did a lot of gluten-free, wheat-free cooking. And I have to remember that the thing is that it's a different texture. So when you're using coconut flour or almond flour, it's definitely more dense. So I think you should cook things that lend themselves to being that dense. So instead of trying to mimic a muffin, make brownies, because brownies are already dense, that sort of thing. So that's what I'm trying to remember as I go through all this. I also had some bagged mix of cupcakes, the Lorcan sugar-free ones. These were bought a while ago, and they were bought for the kids so that they could bake their own. And they were on clearance. It was like $15 for a 6-pack. And I was buying something else there at the time. Now, they were short dated, which is fine. I've just added extra baking powder. But considering they're sugar-free but not wheat-free or anything else, the texture of them is really kind of strange. The kids eat them because my kids aren't fussy, but we're just going to use them and be done with it. But I wouldn't buy them again. So it only makes a small batch of muffins, and so I made half a tray of the keto ones, half a tray of the Lorcan ones, and just cooked them up. And the kids will eat them regardless, because they're children and my children aren't fussy. I was actually thinking as I was making them that because of the texture of the batter for those Lorcan cupcakes, I reckon they'd make nice chocolate waffles. So maybe next time the kids want waffles, they can mix up a batter. There is a vanilla batter too. Mix up one of the bagged batters and they can cook them into waffles as a treat. I think that would work a whole lot better than muffins. I might suggest that to them. After that, I made some cottage cheese. I was unable to get any anywhere, and there's a whole bunch of recipes going around at the moment using cottage cheese. It's a bit of a fad at the moment, so the shelf was completely empty and Darryl couldn't get any for me, but he bought me some milk to make my own. So it was a lot of work for not a whole lot of result. Not something I do regularly at all. So I put 3 litres of the milk, because that was what I had, into a heavy based pot and brought it up to temperature. I couldn't find my cheese thermometer, which is the one that has the little clip on the side, so I was just holding one. Not really the most ideal, but we got there in the end. So we're heating it to about 88 Celsius or 190 Fahrenheit, stirring it so it doesn't scald to the bottom, then removing it from the heat, adding lemon juice. It's around about, I can't remember, it was around about 1/3 of a cup, I think, of lemon juice, and giving it a brief stir, then putting the lid on it to let it sit for 30 minutes. While that sat for those 30 minutes, I shaped the baguette dough for the kids. I just made a single batch rather than my normal double, because Darryl and I won't be eating it either. Got it into the baguette pans that I had sprinkled with semolina to help with any sticking, and also it gives it that little bit of extra crunch. This is what the almond flour muffins look like, and the Lorcan ones. Neither are superb looking, and both have a similar texture, dense, brownie-like, but as I said, my kids aren't fussy. But I do think that this Lorcan mix would make really good waffles in the mini waffle maker for the kids, so I think I'll get them to try that next time, rather than using them for these muffins. It's a lot of work for a batch of 6 too, when 6 kids, they eat them in one sitting. Once the baguettes had proofed a little, I slashed them and got them in the oven. Nothing fancy, just a little room for expansion. I just go through, hold a razor blade and slash them through. After the 30 minutes rest for the cheese, I grabbed a flour sack tea towel over a colander and spooned the curds into it. There was a lot of instructions about being gentle with the curds, not crushing them and all that sort of thing. But most things that I'm going to use this cottage cheese for, I'm going to blitz it smooth anyway, so I wasn't overly concerned. I was gentle-ish, and then I got bored. So, we just started scooping them in with a pot. Once they were in the tea towel, it said to let them drain for a further 30 minutes, so I covered them up and let them trickle out the way for another 30 minutes. By this time, the bread had come out of the oven, so I overcooked it slightly. The smoker was going and I kind of forgot about it. But it wasn't burned, just a lot browner than I normally let baguettes get. I tipped the cottage cheese into a container for the fridge. Now, again, in a bunch of recipes, it says to add in some cream to bring the fat content up. Mine seemed awfully dry too, so I added a couple tablespoons of cream, called it good, but I think it needed less straining. I think it needed a bit more whey in it, but I'll figure it out when I'm using it. By that point, the beef had reached 190 Fahrenheit or 90-ish Celsius, and I'd turned the smoker off and let it rest for an hour in the smoker, and then I pulled it out and sliced it up. It was very tender and tasty. Darryl and I had it just as is for dinner. The kids had it with some gravy and coleslaw on the fresh baguettes. But it's, yeah, it wasn't, it's not our favourite. But it was still tender, it was tasty, but it was a long cook for something that was not our favourite. Starting off the next day, I made another batch of baguettes. I had a bunch of starter to use, so I used that, but also put in about 2 grams of yeast because I wanted it all done in the same day. I mixed up my normal batch. I'll put the link in the recipe for a link for the recipe in the description because it's on the website, and let it proof. Once it had filled the container, if anything, I accidentally let it slightly overproof, I started shaping it. I wondered if making it into little baguettes, mini baguettes might work. That way it could be like single serve sandwiches for the kids. So I normally make 6 large baguettes, I think, in this batch, and I got 20 smaller ones out of the batch. So that works quite well for portioning out. And kids love the novelty of smaller things. So I think it works. And again, with the whole, like a loaf of bread, once you slice into a loaf of bread, then it starts going stale. With the baguettes as well, if they're small ones and you're only cutting a small one, then it's going to be fresher longer. That's the theory anyway. Once they had puffed a little, I just single scored them all and put them in the oven. Same deal, semolina in the baguette pans and that sort of thing. They only took about 15-20 minutes to cook too, which was kind of nice. While they were baking, I got some yogurt in the yogurt maker. I have a Louvel yogurt maker. It holds 2 litres. It is digital, has a range of temperatures. I'll put an affiliate code in the description. But I upgraded to this one from the Green Living Australia one, which is great. But it's plastic and it doesn't have a timer or a temperature dial or anything, and I was running into some trouble when the ambient temperatures were too cold or too hot, that the yogurt maker wasn't maintaining temperature enough, and I had some that just didn't set and some that curdled, and I had a few issues with it. So whilst it worked fantastically and it was super cheap, it just wasn't something I could rely on. So I grabbed the Louvel one and a spare 2-litre jar. So to keep up with enough yogurt, really I have to make 2 litres every day, maybe every second day if I drag it out. But if I've got fresh granola made and all that sort of thing, they go through 2 litres in a day, which isn't very much between 6 kids. So I bought a second 2-litre jar, and that means I can just rotate it through. And with the digital setting, I set it for 12 hours at 37-38 degrees, and then it goes in the fridge overnight and is ready to have fruit puree mixed into it the next morning for them to eat. I use milk powder to help with the thickening, and I use UHT milk because there's no need to heat it and then cool it. I use the Culture from Green Living Australia and a few drops of calcium chloride to help with the texture. The kids tolerate fermented dairy, even if they don't tolerate straight dairy. We got the allergist asked us to try fermented dairy a few years back now, and they all tolerated it well. So we continue to do milk kefir and yogurt and stuff with no problems, which is great. And the UHT milk doesn't seem to be an issue, which is awesome too, because it makes making yogurt so much simpler. For dinner that night, I wanted to try a keto batter on some fish that I had bought. So I'd bought a box of frozen bassa from Costco, nice mild white fish. I know some people have poor opinions of it, but it's inexpensive and it's a mild white fish. I cut it into chunks and then attempted to batter and fry it. So the batter was similar to a beer batter. It had sparkling water in it, but with some almond flour and whey protein, and it mixed up really well. The texture was quite good. I heated the oil up and tried dunking and dipping. Now, I patted the fish dry with paper towel and then dipped it into the batter and let it drip off a bit, and placed it in the oil. But unfortunately, the batter basically just lifted straight off the fish and cooked into little crumbs and trails in the oil. It didn't stick at all. It didn't matter what I did. I tried dipping it in the batter and then keto crumbs as a trial too, but I wasn't overly fond of the flavour of the keto crumbs in the hot oil. I'm just using rice bran oil here too. I know it's not keto, it's what I have in bulk, and I'm cooking for the kids too. So overall, it wasn't really a great meal, and I wouldn't do it again. I'd prefer just to grill the fish with a bit of garlic cream sauce, I think. But it was something interesting to try, and we still ate it, but it was almost just naked fried fish. The kids ate it as well. The fish was tasty enough. It was cooked through, and it had a little bit of a crunch on the outside, but it wasn't battered fish. And actually, I'm not overly fond of battered fish. Like, I don't buy battered fish normally. It was more of a novelty item because I'm trying to put some of those novelty keto items in there just to keep food interesting for myself. But no, that's not something I will do again. It had 5-star reviews. I followed the recipe. I don't know. Didn't work for me, and I wasn't real fond of the flavour of it or anything. So that's not something I will be trying again. The next day, I made something we really did like though, although I haven't been able to get it work as well as the first time, and I just now while I'm reading my notes, wonder if it's because it was homemade cottage cheese. So it was the viral cottage cheese flatbread. Now, I'm reading my notes here and wondering why it didn't click before, but apparently the different brands of cottage cheese make a difference. And looking back on this, I've never gotten the batter as thick and fluffy any other time. And I'm sitting here kicking myself because I just commented that my cottage cheese was really, really dry. So, next time I make cottage cheese flatbread, I'm going to drain the cottage cheese that I've purchased. Hopefully I'll have better results because I've had some fails with it since this time. This time was really good though. So it's basically 1 cup of cottage cheese to 2 eggs with a sprinkle of seasonings. I used my Thermomix to get it really nice and airy and whipped. Lightly greased the baking trays and spread it out and cooked. Now, it takes a good 35 to 40 minutes to cook. It's not something to make spur of the moment, but apparently you can refrigerate it. I haven't as yet, but I'm willing to give it a go. And looking at the footage, it's really thick and fluffy, and it's probably the lack of liquid from the cottage cheese. And how annoying that I'm only now just realizing it as I'm watching Baguette videos, but hey, everyone learns from my videos, me too. So the slightly thinner bits on the edge do get a bit crispy and crack. But overall, a major success and further testing of it. Darryl filled his like a big wrap using the chuck beef, some tomatoes and some of the ghee mayo and some cheese and rolled it up like a wrap, cut it in half, a bit like a burrito, a big fat thing. I did the fan style, you got the 4 parts, so you cut it into sort of a fan shape and you put different parts on each square, fold it up, and you've got this like pocket sandwich type thing, which was really awesome. It was exceptionally tasty, texture was great, really, really enjoyed it, but I've had 2 complete fails since this point. So I haven't made it again because I got really frustrated wasting food because we did eat parts of it, but not the same way, not in the way that I wanted to cook it. But now I've had this epiphany, so I'm going to try it again, maybe today, and do it and drain the cottage cheese first. After that, I made a bunch of smoothie pops. Now, this is something I or the kids do every few days. I have 6 sets of molds and each holds 12 pops. The kids can have 3 or 4 a day. They're only a 90ml cavity, so 3 or 4 a day is fine, but it drags it out rather than having a big cup of smoothie. I much prefer them to have 3 or 4 of these smoothie pops a day than to have a giant smoothie. It just helps to, span the snacks out as the day because, they're little hobbits anyway. I mostly just make smoothie and pour, simple as that. So frozen fruit, some coconut cream and water, chia seeds or other bits of add-ins, and some of the Macro Mike protein powders. I've been showing these off a lot lately. It's not sponsored. It's just my choice of protein powder, but I only buy at the end of financial year or the Black Friday sales because they're really expensive. Side note, I just got my Black Friday order and I'm so looking forward to trying the Gaytime flavored one. I'm definitely going to try making ice cream for myself for that. They're not super low carb. They do have some coconut sugar in there as well as monk fruit, about 5 grams of carbs for a serve. But if I added that to some cream, some egg yolks and make an ice cream with that as a flavor base and then split it between Darryl and I, that's tolerable. So the Ninja Creamy comes in handy there because you don't have to have a specific ice cream recipe. You can make just about anything into ice cream. So I'm looking forward to just trying that Gaytime with some cream, and so I'll put some egg yolks in it for the richness and then I'll freeze it, and then Darryl and I will split it as a scoop each as a dessert for an evening or an afternoon or whatever, because we both really like Gaytime, so we'll see how that goes. But regardless, I use the protein powders in a lot of things. I use them for the kids' instant porridge during winter, or even if I'm cooking them porridge. Otherwise, a scoop of that works as the sweet and flavour for porridge. I use it in their smoothies. I use it in protein balls or bliss balls for them, and sometimes some baked protein slices, things like that. And this is the protein powder of choice. I like the flavours in it. I don't find the artificial sweetener leaves an aftertaste. I like the almond and the peanut proteins. The peanut ones do taste like peanut no matter what flavour is on top of them. You do get a peanut butter flavour, but everyone in my house likes peanut butter anyway, except for Darryl. So that's neither here nor there. They are fairly expensive, but not really excessive compared to a lot of other clean ones. So anyway, as I said, not sponsored, just my choice there. I did have a little bit of smoothie left, so normally 1 jug fills about 2 molds, but it really depends on the air in there and the viscosity. So I had some left, and all I did was threw some of the now browning bananas, because I've had them out of the freezer for too long, into a creamy tub, filled it up to the max line with the smoothie, and stuck that in the freezer. They'll whiz it up like ice cream and have it in cones. So basically, it's just another way for them to have smoothie. They'll do it as a dessert of an evening after dinner in the Ninja Creamy, and then they'll scoop it out onto the little cones that I buy, and there's, you know, it's an alternative way to have the smoothie that makes it feel like ice cream, and yet it's basically just smoothie. I do make cooked ice creams all the time too. I made chocolate recently, you know, custard based chocolate ice cream, but I like the fact that they can have the smoothie type stuff as ice creams as well. And over summer when I can get fruit and freeze it and use it for that sort of purpose, and that's great too, because it's a good use of it. So that was another couple of days of food in my kitchen, using up what we have, trying out the smoker even more, getting a few more keto things going, and just getting there. So as I said, I'll do a video tomorrow, a chat video about Vlogmas and stuff, which is coming up. But over the December, there'll still be some food videos there that'll just be my video for the day instead of a Vlogmas video, because I still have to get the rest of them out. Well, I don't have to. I choose to, because everyone loves to watch them. And I filmed it, so may as well share it. And then we've got the shopping trip and everything in amongst all that too. So I won't go into any more because I'll talk to you tomorrow, because I bought myself a new camera and stuff. Shh. So I'll talk about it tomorrow though. And I was going to say that all the proceeds from this Black Friday-esque sale on the shop, the hope is to be able to afford to buy the roof for the back patio. So I'm doing really well towards that so far, and thank you very much, because yeah, we're getting a quote for the insulated panels for the roof off the back patio so that we can get that paid, done for, out of the way, and Darryl can get it up and we can get that blocked off. And then over the summer it can be somewhere that I can sit to do voiceovers, or just to sit to draw, or just somewhere else that can be outside but protected. That's the idea. So anyway, I will see you guys on the next video. Bye guys.